Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and I'm thrilled to be here with y'all today. Now, folks, if you're like me, you can't get enough of Ted and the gang over at AFC Richmond. That is why I am here, to dive deep into every episode of this wonderful show and share my thoughts and insights with you lovely folks out there. We're going to laugh, we're going to cry, and we're going to have a heck of a good time doing it. So grab your biscuits, settle in, and let's get started, shall we? With this episode, Season 3, Episode 10 of Ted Lasso, International Break. This episode aired May 17th, 2023, directed by Matt Lipsey. Again, one of the most regular directors of this show. In this episode, some of the players leave to play for their national teams. Sam's billionaire nemesis, Afuku, is back with threats to destroy his restaurant and all of football. Some of my predictions with Keeley come true. They come to fruition, while others do not. Roy finds out who his best friend is, and he's not very happy about it. Rebecca rises to a new level of boss bitch as she puts a room full of rich white men in their place. Nate is depressed and lost after he gave up his job at West Ham, as we saw in the last episode, and was predicted to be the outcome. He reconnects with his roots and goes back home to his parents, as we saw the death of evil Nate in the last episode. We see the rise of evil Danny in this episode. This episode, we also successful. This episode's very successful, getting me choked up 3 separate times. As this show, like every episode, gets me choked up. There's always a moment in an episode of Ted Lasso that I get choked up, and I can't help it. I can't help it because the show does make you laugh. The show does make you cry. The show does, awaken your heart. At least it does in me. Let's get it started with the events of this episode, starting off with the pundits, the news desk people commenting on Sam Obasanya's play while Richmond continues to be on a win streak. They also talk about how West Ham got rid of Nate, which, of course, some of the pundits are like, of course, he used to be my kit man. Look, he did no problem, shouldn't have been there. Rupert's the center of that team, which is like absolute garbage. Makes sense why Roy literally ran away from that job. Cut to the locker room, where everybody's congratulating each other after their win. No game next week, right, because of the international games that are going on. So the team, the players, the majority of players that aren't going to go play with their national team, they're just going to hang out. They're going to have a week off. The coaches are going to have a week off. Beard announces the players who will be playing for their national teams. Jamie Tart will be playing for the UK. Van Dam playing for Toronto, Canada. Danny going to play for Mexico. Bumbercatch playing for Switzerland. Colin playing for Wales. And Sam snubbed by Nigeria, obviously because he turned down Afuku's offer to play. So one aspect of this, Sam getting screwed over. Tart goes to tell Sam that he's sorry that he got snubbed for this thing. And Sam congratulates Tart and kind of plays it off like he doesn't care that he didn't get chosen. But clearly Sam does. Van Dam congratulating Danny, but this is Danny turning very serious, turning to evil Danny. He turns around and tells him they are not brothers. Now they are enemies, and soon you will be my bitch. Which, for Danny, to go from the lovable, always happy, always positive guy that Danny is, for him to flip that switch into evil Danny. One, he has the look on his face as if he's barely holding on to that evil emotion and wants to smile and be happy so bad, but he is turning into evil Danny. Because he knows that he will be facing off against Van Damme in the international game. So it's kind of fun to see Danny become evil Danny. Ted and Rebecca talking about they're in her office talking about wine delivery, but it sounded like they were talking about period talk, about how it comes once a month, except for when you're pregnant, which is kind of just throwing a nonsense joke into the show, but also funny. She asks if Ted heard about Nathan, and he has, but he doesn't have an opinion on it. And you find out that Ted is there for girl talk with Rebecca, and that he's pretty bad at it, not speculating on what he thinks happened to Nate. The camera pans over to show that Trent is also in the room. So that kind of happened a lot in Arrested Development as far as jokes where people is talking. It happens in this show, usually in that locker room where people are having conversations. In the locker room anyway, they're having conversations, and Will just happens to be in the room as well. But there's happened a few times where it's like the camera pulls back or pans to show another person in the room, just kind of adds a layer of humor to the situation, knowing that somebody else was in the room as well. But Trent says that he heard a rumor that there was maybe some inappropriate behavior in the office, which I think is more in reference to, I think the rumors he was hearing were of Rupert's inappropriate behavior with his assistant. And Rupert comes in to, Rupert Higgins comes in to tell them that Edwin Akufu is in town. And Rebecca thinks Rupert is involved with with Akufu being in town. And Rupert calls and Rebecca's phone, and in her phone he is labeled as the devil. So when he calls, like, speak of the devil, as he calls. I don't think she answers, though. Cut to Jade showing up to Nate's house, who is depressed in his bed, covered in the sheets, under the sheets. And he asks if he's an idiot for doing what he did, for leaving. And she asks if he would do anything different, and he wouldn't, of course. So, she invites him to go to Poland with her, to help her family screw in light bulbs, which he thought she was making a Polish joke. Obviously, how many? I don't even know. There's so many of those old school street jokes, racist street jokes about stupid people. Anyway, but she wasn't making a joke, and Nate said, tried to pass it off like, oh, never mind. I didn't think so either. So she's going back home, so she's not going to be in this episode, but he's not going to go with her. So she leaves, and as she leaves, he's like watching outside the window as she leaves, and you see there's a bunch of reporters at the outside of his property, clearly wanting to interview Nate to ask him what happened. And I'm thinking at this point, it's like, okay, maybe this is the episode where he gets with Ted to squash things. Ted is off for the week. He's not coaching. So it's like, maybe this will be the episode that happens for them to kiss and make up, but it doesn't happen in this episode. Although it kind of starts, I think the groundwork has been laid for that path to be taken very soon. So obviously, he's not only depressed, Nate is, for no longer being employed, no longer being a coach, but also he's got these reporters outside waiting to, really not let it go. Cut to Keely showing up to her office where she finds all of the furniture being cleared out. And she is the last to find out from Barbara tells her that the VCs decided to pull their funding. And Jack said that Jack told Barbara that she was going to tell Keely herself, but of course she didn't. And they only have 3 days to get out. So, kind of very last minute info from Keely, and being the last one to find, that's got to be horrible, especially considering like it's just like a slap in the face. Just they were in a relationship with Jack. She's gone in Argentina, and just all of a sudden, which not surprised that. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be, not only is this show setting up for Nate to go back to Richmond, right? He left West Ham. He's searching for what he's going to do next. What is he going to do with his life? Keely, funding pulled from her business. This clears the way for Keely to go back to Richmond as well. Right? It's all coming together. The Henry Lego prophecy is coming together. At least I thought. I mean, there's still aspects I could still be right. Cut to Van Damme boarding the plane. Turns out Danny on the same flight. Van Damme offers him, like super excited to see Danny, offers him some chips. Danny turns around and just still mean face. Although like with the potential for Danny to break. Like at every moment, it's me, evil Danny. He's like they're right under the surface is joyous, happy Danny. You can tell in his lips. You can tell that he's right. He's just about to smile, but doing every ounce of his energy is being put into not smiling. But Danny grabs the chips, crushes the entire bag, and then pours out the crumbled chips into Van Damme's hand. Cut to Ted. Cut to Ted trying to give Sam some motivation after not having a great week. Obviously being snubbed. Trying to give him the old Michael Jordan didn't make varsity his first time out. But then Sam fires back with the details of the reality, which I never heard of. Of course, I've heard of the motivational thing of like, Michael Jordan didn't even make his varsity team. But then you find out, which I'd never known until Sam in this episode, that actually Michael Jordan was undersized for the varsity team. They were desperate for getting some more height on the team, and Michael Jordan at the time was a lot shorter. So the coach suggested that he goes to junior varsity in order to gain a little bit more experience, and over the next year, Michael Jordan grew 5 inches and gain that experience, and that's why it's like it's just like, yeah, he didn't hit his growth spurt yet. It's not about he changed who he was. He was always Michael Jordan. He just was a short Michael Jordan, and then got his growth spurt and then went to varsity. So I learned something in that one of many. I'm sure there's so many other explanations for like motivational. Like there's the one about, I think, Babe Ruth, about like he's got the home run record, but you know what else he has a record in? Strikeouts, because he swung every time, and you're never going to hit a home run if you don't swing, which is very true. Failure, being able to take failure and learn from that is one of the key aspects of success. You cannot get success without failure. It is just impossible. And if you're constantly avoiding failure, then that just means you're never going to grow. You're just never going to... One, you're not taking a chance, but 2, you're not going to grow. So I don't know. Maybe there's a reality to that one as well. Like Babe Ruth didn't know he couldn't swing or something like that. Either way, kind of shut down that words of encouragement from Ted. Beard invites Ted and Roy to join him and his girlfriend to go to one of those axe-throwing places. Because Beard wants to go celebrate Nate's being fired, which Ted not stoked about celebrating somebody else's failures. That's not what he's into. But that's what Beard is intending. And Roy says he has plans, but kind of definitely looks like he's hiding something. Like he's got plans and he just doesn't want to mention what those plans are, right? Maybe it's just he has fear of axes and we didn't know. Just like in the Amsterdam trip, we didn't know he couldn't ride a bike. Maybe he has a thing with axes. That's not what it is. We do find out what it was, but Roy's not going to go either. And we also find out that Coach Beard has 17 axes with him in the UK. And he, his excuse, like, I'm never going to live in a different country than my axes. Are you kidding me? And out of the 17 axes, they're not all for throwing. But he intends on his girlfriend to bring all of them to this axe throwing, which I don't know if you can bring outside axes. I have a friend that works at one of those places, but I don't know. It seems like I don't think they would allow you to bring in giant battle axes. I just don't think so. But what do I know? Those things seem like a insurance nightmare, but I don't know. It's crazy. Cut to Sam runs into Rebecca in the hallway. She apologizes for him not making the national team. They both look awkward in this moment, but like the giddy kind of awkward. Like there's still a connection between them, which I thought was gone, but they're still there. Very giddy. And Sam, being the humble guy, says he should have worked harder. And she says that he's wonderful and gives him like this smile. And they kind of do this awkward, like, okay, buddy, type of a thing. So just that interaction, I am back on the prediction that maybe they are going to get back together. That was one of my predictions going into this season. Keely and Roy getting back together, Sam and Rebecca getting back together, and Nate going back to Richmond, Keely going back to Richmond. These were all things that I guessed at the beginning of the season, and this one little interaction gave me hope when I thought maybe I was going to be wrong. So we will see. There's still energy there. Cut to Rupert in Rebecca's office waiting for her. And she tells him to make an appointment next time instead of just sneaking in. Apparently he knows one of the groundskeepers or whatever, one of the security guards that helped him. My hair is like ridiculously flying everywhere, and I'm trying to not focus on it. Anyway, Rupert's there. Rebecca's not happy. He tells her he's there to invite her to this meeting with the Akufu to join this Akufu League, or at least the meeting is about this Akufu League that the billionaires in town to set up. She's very skeptical. He says it would be good, good for the sport. Rupert says that. And before he leaves, she asks what happened to Nate. Obviously, she's speculating. She wants to know. And he says some people just aren't ready when they're given the shot. So, seems like it was, she probably can read between the lines that it wasn't, Nate just wasn't willing to do whatever Rupert wanted him to do, right? She probably knows how controlling Rupert can be. She kind of has a look on her face. Cut to Roy at a party with his sister and niece, Phoebe, for Uncle Day, which is a made-up holiday just so they can celebrate Roy. And Uncle Day happens to be Phoebe's favorite holiday. Second to that is Roy's birthday. She loves Roy. I love the dynamic between Phoebe and Roy is the best. Like, there could be just a spin-off show of Phoebe and Roy, right? His sister dies. What a tragically horrible. Roy has to take over. Show. You got a show, right? Him, Keely, Phoebe, show, right? Either way, Uncle Day. Her third favorite holiday is a German holiday that sounds a lot like Halloween. Kids dress up in scary outfits to scare away winter or whatever. Definitely, maybe that is the origins of Halloween on some level. Jamie Tart shows up. He was invited as well. And Phoebe says that she had to invite Roy's best friend, right? And neither guy agrees with that label. And she says that Roy talks about him all the time. He's always talking about him. And they spend every day together, so how could you not be best friends? You talk about them, like, of course. And then she asks, or somebody asks Tart who his best friend, and he's like, oh, it's probably Isaac is his best friend. And Roy's like, fuck off. And of course, Phoebe, there's the swear jar he owes for the swear jar. He tells her to bill him. Then she tells Roy to open up the gift that Jamie brought. And Jamie's like, it's dumb, it's stupid, don't open it. Roy opens it up, and he finds out it's his original England kit from the 2014 World Cup with his name on the back. And it's like it's clearly a gift that the person that knows you the best would give you. So I think we know who Roy Kent's best friend is. Begrudgingly is Jamie Tart. Somebody you never would have thought to be best friends with Roy Kent. But makes complete. I love their relationship too. Especially when they finally kind of seemed like Amsterdam was the point at which they finally bonded with each other. Phoebe gives him his gift, and it's an orange and yellow and red tie-dye shirt, which apparently the colors spell Roy. Red, orange, yellow. Very sweet. Also, an insane shirt to see Roy in, which he wears throughout the episode, throughout the rest of this episode. Roy Kent in a tie-dye shirt. Very bright, very colorful. Very colorful. Tart says that he fucking loves it, and gladly pays Phoebe the swear jar fee. And Roy, whenever Roy has to be positive, in this case saying thank you, it's always the most painful thing that he has to do. So he painfully says thank you. And then the ladies get up. His sister, niece, they get up to go get into their costumes because they have a performance. Not only do they have a performance, this performance is so involved that it includes an intermission. And as soon as they leave, Jamie mentions his sister, Roy's sister, is fit, and Roy immediately responds telling him that he will cut his eyes out. Oh, the two best friends going back and forth. Cut to Sam, nervous, showing up to his restaurant and finding it empty. Right? He finds out that all the reservations that it's supposed to be booked out. Obviously, we found out before they were booked out for months. But all the reservations were canceled except for one. And of course, it's Edwin Akufu. And he has the nickname for Sam of Pinky Dick. Right? And then changes it to Pinky Dick, I mean Sam. So that's his extended name, Pinky Dick, I mean Sam. And he's there with this popular food blogger from the Times. And, of course, his handshake guy. And Akufu's in town to look for the best West African chef because he wants to open a Nigerian restaurant 20 minutes away. Clearly wanting to destroy Sam's restaurant business. Which, of course, Sam's chef is not happy about that news. Right? And Sam has to kind of hold her back. And, of course, the billionaire Akufu also was the one who made all the reservations. But the unbelievable part is when Akufu starts doing all the voices that he used because apparently this billionaire literally made all of the appointments himself. Like, he didn't just tell an assistant to do that for him. Akufu went out of his way to not only call in all the reservations, but to come up with unique accents for every... I don't buy at all. I don't buy that at all. No. I mean, I can see why he wants to get back at Sam, because he's a spoiled little brat billionaire who didn't get what he wants, and now he's going to have a tantrum. And he's got to well, if I can't have it, nobody can have it, right? Then you can't be happy either. But I can't see him. I could see him paying somebody. He has a handshake guy. if he's paying a guy full time to be his handshake guy, he's not going to be making these reservations himself. But still a funny scene watching Akufu do all these imitations. And I can't see a billionaire being that creative either. And before he leaves, he tells Sam that he paid $20 million to make sure Sam didn't get on the Nigerian national team, right? And then after he leaves, his handshaker guy, Francis, gives Sam the old up high, down low, too slow type of thing, which is something I haven't seen since, what, like maybe high school, doing that to friend, maybe. This is like blue. It's been decades since I've seen the up high, down low, too slow thing. But fun to see it here. And Nate saw it coming. He's like, "Don't do this to me, Francis." But he, it is. Nate or Sam obliges. Let's take a quick break right now to talk about, are you a fan of original artwork and live events? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor and the weekly live stream over at youtube.com/Inspired Disorder. This ongoing series explores the endless possibilities of the human face through abstract ink paintings on paper, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Join me every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific Time as I paint live. Follow the Many Faces series and discover the endless possibilities of the human face. Don't miss out on this opportunity to be part of the action and own a piece of original artwork by me, Ray Taylor. Head to youtube.com/Inspired Disorder every Thursday to catch the live stream, and visit inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase the Many Faces artwork. And now, let's get back to the show. Cut to Nate tossing and turning in bed. The news is gone from the front of his house. So he decides to sneak out to go to his parents' house. He literally crawls in through their window. They come out thinking there's somebody breaking in, but they moved the key, so that's why he had to crawl through the window. Very funny. His mom offering to make him food, but he just wants to go to sleep. And his dad's like, "Well, if you're offering, I'll give some food." He's like, "No, you go to sleep." Cut to the Keely at her office building, kind of for one last goodbye, saying goodbye to the elevator. Cut to Rebecca, starts she goes into Higgins' office and surprises him. He like fumbles his tea and spills tea on himself again, but only a little bit of tea. But then when he says it's okay, he fumbles the tea even more and spills it all on him. Very funny, very hot tea. And she needs his advice. And Higgins is going through the order of people she knows that she must have tried to get a hold of before she came to him. Right? So what, Keely and Ted, they're not answering. Sassy, she's on a plane without Wi-Fi. And then he asks, like, her mom, and she's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And he's like, "Sweet. I am above your mom in the ranking of people I will go to advice for." So that was great news for Higgins. And she says she doesn't want to be a part of the Akufu's league, right? She doesn't like it. She thinks the only reason that Rupert invited her is because she's a woman and it will look good, right? Just for optics, she's showing up. Higgins tells her, who cares why? Who cares why? You have a seat at the table. Just go and see what it's all about, right? You don't have to make a decision, but just go. And before she leaves, Higgins warns her that if people at this meeting start mysteriously disappearing, she needs to get the hell out of there. Very serious. And she's like, she realizes his information. She takes his warning, right? She's like, "Oh, you got it, Higgins." Cut to Keely at the bar, the team bar, ignoring phone calls from Rebecca. She gets a text from Jack. Jack blames the time difference on why she didn't call her. She's still in Argentina. She also says there was nothing I can do, right? This woman that says she has so much money that, she could have been one of the people in Epstein's Black Book or whatever that reference was. But it's just complete bullshit. Oh, I don't know. Passing the buck on why she clearly was going to happen. It was going to happen. But she's making excuses. She's not taking responsibility for it. Then May, the bar owner, comes over to refill her drink and asks if everything's okay. And Keely says everything she touches turns to shit. And May responds that shit helps things grow, right? Kind of the perfect way to turn that around. And Keely introduces herself. I think this is probably... I don't even know why Keely went to this bar. I don't think she's ever been to that bar. Of all the scenes that have taken place in that bar, I don't think she has ever been there. Maybe. I don't remember it. Either way, she introduces herself, and then she asks how it is being a boss. May has been the boss running that bar for 40 years. And she says, for some, it's better to follow your gut than to pretend to be excited by following someone else's. It's a great encapsulation of why it sucks to work for somebody else and why working for yourself may be way more work, way more stressful, but at least you're the one in charge and you're not having to obey the wishes of somebody that could care less about your existence. So I appreciate that. And Keely asks what she should do if someone took all of it away. And May responds with, once you make it to the top of the mountain, what's left for you but lightning? Which Keely and myself kind of confused of whether that's a good or bad thing. And May says it depends on if you're ready for it or not. Which, I guess that makes sense. Once you get to the place of the quote unquote whatever success is, it's not the end of the journey. But kind of one of the only ways back down. One, you're closer to the sky for lightning. So when you are at the pinnacle of your success, you can get attacked like you see a lot of celebrities and whatnot dealing with quote unquote cancel culture, which is more cultural backlash than anything. Which some celebrities think of that as the same as if the government were arresting you for whatever you're doing, which is not. But yeah, so kind of an interesting statement from May. And true, like if you are expecting to deal with lightning, it's a different situation than if it gets you caught off guard, which is like Keely should have known. Come on. I don't want to victim blame in this situation, but you were in a relationship with the person funding your business, one of the people involved in funding your business, your boss, and you have a breakup with your boss where your boss was trying to get you to follow her orders and you don't, and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to be in this relationship anymore. But you thought that they would be like, oh, but for sure I'm still going to be putting money into your business. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? We have Nate in bed at his parents' house. Mom sneaking in to leave him food while he's sleeping. Cut to Roy. Kind of comes strolling into Richmond wearing the tie-dye shirt. Everybody kind of taken aback by seeing Roy in this shirt. One guy laughs at Roy, and Roy just turns around and he immediately shuts up just based on Roy's stare. When he walked into his office, Beard and Ted are sitting in there. Beard notices them right away and is doing everything to try and get Ted's attention to see this, and ends up having to throw a wadded up piece of paper at him. And they're both like, what is going on? Roy says hey and kind of just leaves, walks away, and walks by Trent. And Trent, equally speechless and blown away at what he saw and giving Ted and Beard the what the fuck was that kind of look. Cut to Keeley, still at the bar, making a tower of coasters. She gets a text from Rebecca, who's now she's worried that she hasn't heard back from her. Cut to Nate. So this is like a lot of cuts through seeing Keeley and Nate dealing with their dreams being taken away. Depression. Nate's mom leaving a tray of food outside of the door, knocking on the door, and then you see him open it to take the food in, and then cut to the door opening with the empty tray coming back out. Right, so both Nate and Keeley depressed. They both kind of need to go back to their homes. Richmond. They both need to go back to Richmond. The team watching the national games in their like team meeting room, which I don't know if that's the press conference room as well. It might be the same room. But they're all in there, the ones that didn't go, in their normal street clothes watching these games. And one of the games they're watching is Mexico versus Canada, a.k.a. Danny versus Van Dam. And Danny kicks the ball directly into Van Dam's face, causing it to break and bleed. And just like everybody's like, whoa, this is crazy. Cut to Rebecca, which I guess Sam also had his dream taken away, not playing for the national team. Cut to Rebecca in her office, reading an article about Edwin Akufu reigniting talks for Super League, which is the meeting that she's going to be a part of. She gets a notification on her phone and reaches into her purse to go grab her phone out of the purse. And instead, she pulls out the Ola's matchbook, the Sam's Restaurant matchbook that he gave her. One of the things her mom's psychic said she would see. And then little army man that Ted handed out to people. They were kind of stuck together, so she kind of puts those on her desk, lays them out on her desk with a smile on her face. And she reaches back into her purse, gets the phone. It's a text from Rupert. And it's him hoping to see her at the meeting. And she kind of eyeballs the army man on the desk and responds that she'll be there. Cut to Roy leaving work, walking by the bus driver that is also Beard's drug dealer, who is also wearing a tie-dye shirt. And he's like, oh, we're twins, bro. Which, of course, Roy not very happy with that comparison. Roy hates it, tears off the shirt, throws it to the ground before getting in his car, drives away, but ends up stopping, driving back, picks it up. Because it's like, what are you doing, bro? Phoebe's not going to be very happy about that. So he gets the shirt back. Keeley walking around town now, so she left the bar and gets another text from Rebecca. Still no reply. Keeley, something catches her eye in a store window. And she goes inside. Cut to Nate's mom collecting the empty tray. And his mom happy that her son's there and she's able to take care of him. However, his dad has a look of concern on his face. The next morning, Rebecca home, getting ready to go to this meeting. And standing in front of the mirror and kind of puts her hand in front of her heart. Probably trying to calm her nerves. And in the reflection, she sees herself as a small child looking back at her with a big smile on her face. And then she does the trick that she taught Nate, where she goes down and gets up really big, and she does like the scary face with the tongue out look that she does. She doesn't spit on the mirror like Nate. That was more of Nate's twist he put on that. But she does the thing that she uses to get really big, to give herself confidence. and you see the reflection of this childlike version of her in the mirror doing that same pose. But of course, it's much more adorable when you see the small child going with her hands just out and the tongue out, very, very much less menacing than Rebecca's the look on her face. But she has the look of confidence and joy kind of comes over her as she grabs her things to head out. And Roy taking Phoebe to school. He's wearing the tie-dye shirt still. The teacher that Roy ran into in the previous season spots him and asks if he's off to protest the Vietnam War wearing the tie-dye shirt. And then she says that he looks different, lighter, and less stuck. And he asks if she was flirting with him that last time. And she says that she hopes she didn't cause too much damage. Like, she felt like there was clearly something, where with his relationship with Keeley, which I think that was the same episode where Roy was having issues. He talked to the Diamond Dogs because Keeley was getting this photo shoot because she's this businesswoman, and he's concerned about what his place is in the relationship. And the teacher kind of noticed that and was cleaning up the mess, as she referred to it. But she says she hopes she didn't cause too much damage. And Roy in that moment thinks and has this like realization and just leaves. And if the teacher's like regrets what she said, like, what did I say that? Why did I say that? Right? Trying to be smooth, and she said the wrong thing, and it's like, well, I messed that up. Cut to Keeley shows up to the office where Barbara is still packing up the rest of her things, and Keeley has a gift for her, and she pulls out a snow globe of Richmond Green, the kind of that park that's just outside the bar there where they were singing the Hey Jude song in the last episode. And this is the first moment in the show, in this episode, where I get choked up. It's like, oh, she got her a snow globe. It's like, oh, this is the moment they're going to bond. And, it's nice to see somebody care when somebody you work with leaves. The many jobs I've had when I left, it was nobody cared. There was no goodbye. There was no sad to see you leave. Even working at a job for 13 years, it's just like nothing. Nobody gave a shit. So probably some of that was fueling my emotions. But Keeley thanks her for her help and wishes that she could have worked together longer, right? She says that she was fun, which surprises Barbara. And then she says that she has to buy the snow globe. Barbara has to buy the snow globe for her, or it doesn't count. Which is just, of course, Barbara can't just take the gift. It's like, oh, I got to actually buy it. So Barbara ends up paying Keeley for it, which she's also surprised at how much she paid for it. And that was enough because she also needs a receipt. Because, of course, she's the chief financial officer. She needs receipts. She has to do everything by the books. She can't just receive a gift. She has to pay for it. Cut to Nate's mom letting him know. She's kind of peeking inside the room while he's still laying in bed, letting him know that her and his father are going to go to the farmer's market, and that she loves him. Nate's still in bed, not sleeping, but he's, clearly still depressed. Cut to Rebecca showing up to this meeting where there's just a bunch of old white men. Rupert arrives with his new assistant, who's bringing him his phone that he forgot in the car. And she also tells Rupert that his fecalist called with good news. It's good news, which is amazing. Exactly what Rebecca would want to hear. Anytime she can hear that embarrassing news for Rupert is great. Rebecca also notices that the new that he's got a new assistant, the one that he was all over at the game that she saw, and she warned him. He's no longer there. And Immediately, another owner comes in and kind of comes on to her, talking about her outfit, right? And then Akufu shows up, goes over to Rebecca and says that he's glad she's there, so he's not the only minority in the room, which is the first thing I thought when he walked in, too. It's like, well, Rebecca and Akufu are the two minorities in this room. The rest are just rich old white guys. Before the meeting, Akufu insists that they all eat first, and he brings out his favorite dishes. Of course, Nigerian food, but of course, also Chicago-style hot dogs, which is what he also mentioned when talking to Sam earlier, that's what his restaurant was going to feature: authentic Nigerian food and Chicago-style hot dogs. I'm trying to forget what's on a Chicago-style hot dog, but... So brings out these platters of food. Cut to Nate finally emerging from his room, knowing that he is alone at the house, and start kinds of looking through things, looking through his old things. Comes across this magic hat with the scarves in it. Comes across a photo album where he's looking through it, sees his baby pictures. Then he goes up into the attic and finds a violin in the violin case and brings that down. Cut to Roy picking up a gift as well. Who knows? He had some idea talking to the teacher. Now he goes getting a gift for somebody. Cut to back in the meeting where Akufu is ready to talk business. They've had enough to eat, but not until the Russian leaves, which I don't know. I mean, why would you even invite him if you didn't want him there? He ate and then he invited him to leave. He told him to leave. It's whatever. They told the Russian to leave, which the Russian understands. It's like, I understand we don't look good in the eyes of the world right now, so he leaves. And there's the joke where he tries to push the door when the door is meant to be pulled. Akufu trying to tell him, you got to pull the door. Finally, he pulls it open. And his idea, Kufu's idea, he wants to make a high-price premium league. Doesn't care if fans won't like it because the prices are going to be high. It's going to take all of the premium talent away from the other teams, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't care if there's going to be parody songs that are going to be made. But he compares it to the automobile. He compares it to the smartphone. He compares it to the squatty potty, which in my opinion, I would say the bidet is far more culturally relevant and took on far more than the squatty potty. I've tried both kind of improvements to bathroom use, to shitting, and I find the squatty potty to make the experience far more uncomfortable. Having your knees up against your chest, it feels really awkward. But the bidet, game changer. Game changer. And they cost about this. You can get a pretty low cost bidet for whatever you could pay for that step stool called a squatty potty. Regardless, I digress. He hands out his 5-year projections. Rebecca gets a text in that moment from Keeley apologizing for not getting back to her and telling her that she's got this. And reminds her that at one point, all these old white men were just a bunch of little boys, right? Let's take a quick break from this episode to talk about Attention all Ray Taylor Show fans! We're excited to announce we've just released a line of exclusive merchandise featuring original artwork inspired by the show. Our high-quality shirts and biodegradable phone cases are a perfect way to show your support for the show and make a great gift for any fan. Plus, with each purchase, you'll be helping us continue to bring you great content. So don't wait. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com now and check out the full collection. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll show your support by grabbing some Ray Taylor Show merchandise today. And now, let's get back to the show. Cut to Nate pulling out the violin from the case, getting it all prepped before starting to play, and he plays it beautifully, right? Nate, just perfection playing this violin, right? So we have kind of this montage going on, cutting between these different characters: Rebecca, Roy, Keeley, Nate, as Nate's playing this beautiful violin, right? And so it cuts back to Rebecca as he's playing, meeting she asks if it's, is this a fucking joke? Is this a fucking joke? When they're all dumbfounded by that, she cuts to like her view, and she sees all of these guys as little kids. And she starts talking to them like they're little kids. Like, what do you think you're doing? Just stop it. Just stop it, right? Like she would to like little kids. How much more money do any of you really need? If only she could speak to like the billionaires who are ruining the world right now. How much money do just Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and all these people who could effortlessly end so much of the problems in the world? Don't. All the family members that are billionaires from the Walmart company. Multiple billionaires over. Just, they could effortlessly end so many tragedies in this world with their hoarded money. Money that they will never spend in their lifetime, in their family's lifetime. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And she asks why they would take something away from people that means so much to them. And she goes into this whole thing. Right? Football isn't just a game. And when she says that, I yell, "Football is life!" Right? But of course, she says it far more eloquently. But while she's saying her thing, which I'll go through what she says, but while she's saying this, we're kind of getting a montage, seeing the team, watching the games, the violin's still playing, Rebecca telling these old men what football is, Jamie on the TV, and the team sees that Jamie wore the number 24, which is Sam's number, so kind of a homage to his teammate. You see Roy in the back struggling to write this letter, write his feelings down, crumbling up rejected versions. And you find out that it's a note to Keeley. And while these things are going, you hear this Rebecca talking to this room full of old white men that she sees as little children. That football isn't just a game. It's one of those amazing things in life that can make you feel shit one moment, and then like it's Christmas morning the next. It has the ability to make heroes and villains out of ordinary men. And Nate still playing the violin. By the way, Nate, the guy who has at one point been a hero, last season been the villain. And Rebecca continues, "People love this game. My father loves this game. I'm sure all of you used to love this game. I knew this little boy from Richmond, working class, and he loved football so much. He used to sneak into the matches because his family just couldn't afford the tickets. And one afternoon, he finally got caught. The security found him and smacked him across his face, knocking him to the ground. But that little boy stood up, and he smiled. And he kicked that security guard in the bollocks and ran away, never to return. Until 25 years later, when he walked in and bought that entire club. Of course, now we know she's talking about Rupert. And on his first day as owner, he went and found that same security guard and gave him a pay raise without any explanation. Just because we own these teams doesn't mean they belong to us. And I don't want to be part of something that could destroy this beautiful game. Because I would hate for all those little kids and grown-ups out there to ever lose access to that beautiful, passionate part of themselves." Everybody's just kind of blown away at the table. And after that, Akufu says that it's a beautiful speech, but then redirects, asks everybody, now who wants to make a lot of money, right? Cut to Akufu storming out of the room, and we see everybody in the room frozen, covered in food. And everybody kind of laughing at it. How childish it is. That's Akufu's a child. The most billionaires are children. Look at how Elon Musk treats people. Comedy's back on Twitter until professional comedians start making jokes about him, and then he bans them. Because that's not what he thinks comedy is. Hate speech is comedy to him. Twitter, far more censored now that since Elon took over. Facts. Cut to Nate, still playing, until he realizes his dad's standing right behind him and gets scared shitless. And his dad says he misses hearing him play, and Nate thought that he hated it, right? And told him, it's like, why would I say? His dad's like, why would you say? It's like, why would it? Because you said that to me. You put so much pressure on him to be perfect. And his dad apologizes because he didn't know how to parent a genius. And he apologized for pushing him to be the best at everything because that's what he thought he had to do as a parent. And he tells Nate that he doesn't care if he's successful. He just wants him to be happy. Very sweet, very touching. Cut back to the meeting. As the last old guy leaves, who kind of hit on Rebecca, mentioning that the last time he saw Rebecca and Rupert in the same room together alone was after their wedding. And in that moment, they really wanted him to leave. And so the guy leaves. Rupert recalls a time they both snuck into the Richmond game. And she points out that that was a moment when he already owned the team, so it wasn't really the same thing. And he plucks some food out of her hair, and Wallen watches this like, oh no. Please don't tell me this is going to happen right now. And he goes to kiss her, and she stops him. So it's like, thankfully, good job, Rebecca. And she leaves. Right? Cut to Roy dropping off the letter. He finally finished it, dropping it off at Keeley's place, trying to kind of, still wearing the tie-dyes, trying to sneak it under the door, which is like, there's no way. She's got this like brand new modern house. There's going to be a gap under the door. There's going to be some drafty gap in the UK where it like snows. You're going to have a drafty gap in the thing. Or maybe he's just trying to tuck it in there somewhere. But either way, Keeley shows up and scares the shit out of Roy intentionally. She puts on a voice. And he asks what she's doing home in the middle of the day. And she doesn't answer. She doesn't want to tell him that like she just lost everything. Instead, she changes the subject, asking what that letter is. And he hands it to her. She opens it up and kind of starts to read it, but says she can't read his handwriting. So she gives it to Roy. And I think she can. I just think she wants to hear Roy say it. So he asks him to read it. And in the letter, he apologizes for pulling away from their relationship because he was stuck and with his own shit and didn't want her to deal with his shit. But he wants to remind her that she will always be Keeley fucking Jones. And if he did anything to make her feel like that wasn't true in any way, that he is sorry. And this, start getting choked up in this moment. And I'm like, get back together. What are we doing here? And then he tells her that he loves her. And she thanks him. And he walks away. And it kind of looks like she's going to go after him. But it cuts to Nate playing Uno with his parents, having a good time. Then back to Keeley's place where Rebecca shows up, soaked, blouse is soaked. And Keeley screams when she answers the door. She's like, you've been shot. And Rebecca says that she just convinced a room full of old white men to pull out of the Okufu's league. And Keeley gives her a big hug. And Rebecca's angry that Keeley was dodging her all day. Cut to them on the couch. Keely fills her in on everything that was going on. And she asks why she didn't tell her. And Keely's like, I didn't know. I didn't want to tell you. Right? And Rebecca reminds her how amazing she is. Obviously, Keely has great support around her. Then asks how much money Jack was putting in to her business. And Keely, instead of telling her, decides to write it down because that's what they do in the movies. And Rebecca's like, I have that much. And Keely's like, this is too much. It's too much money. No way. And Rebecca sees the numbers. She's like, I have that money in cash right now on me, which is ridiculous. But also shows how absolutely rich Rebecca is. And then gives her a big hug, obviously, because Rebecca's going to fund her business. So Keely's not going back to Richmond. Instead, she's getting into business with her best friend. Which isn't necessarily a good plan, but, you know, at least Rebecca's money, at least there's not going to be the same kind of issues that would have happened with Jack. And Rebecca tells her that Rupert tried to kiss her. And then she talks about how horrible it would have been if she got back with that flappy cock Rupert, right? Talking all kinds of shit about how going back to the old relationship that was toxic is horrible and bad and don't go back and all this stuff. Meanwhile, you see shirtless Roy Kent strolling in, putting on a robe, right? Although, you know, the scene is all about seemingly Keely lecturing Rebecca on getting back together with a toxic ex. But I don't think Roy was the toxic ex that Rupert was. So in that moment where they're trying to make that comparison, which would have been a lot funnier, but we all know Roy's a good guy. He's not the same as Rupert. So different levels of mistake if Rebecca had gone back to him versus Keely getting back with Roy, which I hope is good. I hope they're back. I hope they're officially back now. Cut to the next morning. Will walks into the locker room that is already prepared. All of his work has already been done for him, and there is a note waiting for him with a little piece of lavender taped to the note. Inside the note, it says, "I'm sorry," signed Wonder Kid. I literally start the third time in this episode, I'm crying. The Nate redemption arc. I fucking love Nate. This is the best. Way better than him just going to Ted first. Yes, apologize to Will. Apologize to the one guy you treated like absolute garbage. Like absolute garbage. It's the best thing for this redemption arc to work. To see that the very first thing he did was to do all of the work for which Nate used to do that job not that long ago. So he knows how to do that job as well. And one of the first things the very first thing he started giving Will shit about was using lavender when he was washing the uniforms. Nate remembered. Great apology. Great groundwork for hopefully will be Nate coming back, because if Will is okay with it, then I think other people will fall in line. It would be way more likely. Cut to Keely on the phone with the client, trying to get those clients back. Right now that her business is back open and running, Barbara shows up, returns the snow globe because she gave Jack her resignation and only buys snow globes when she's leaving a job. And she asks if Keely is looking for a CFO. Keely gives her a big hug. Yeah, you're staying with me, Barbara. And of course, Barbara, being the CFO, asks to see if she can get a refund. You have all the players returning to the locker room. all happy to see each other again. Van Damme with a bandage over his nose gets a tap on his shoulder from Danny. He turns around, super scared, but Danny's back. Happy Danny's back. Sam shows up with a picture of the 1994 Nigerian World Cup team, puts it in his locker. Roy shows up with a different colored tie-dye shirt, so it looks like Roy turning over a new leaf, being a little bit more fun with his wardrobe. Beard surprised at that. Trent trying to get Trent's attention. And Trent trying to get to know Beard a little bit, asking him where he's from originally. Says it's none of your business. And both of them like the change. And in that moment, Beard decides to change and tells Trent that he's from Peoria. Cut to Rebecca hanging this drawing that's the background of this episode, which I looked up. David Hockney is a famous artist from the UK, well-known artist. And I think it's the drawing's called The Football Player. Ted thinks he's a very talented boy, whoever drew that, because it does look... That's the thing people don't realize about art and the art world. That the idea of quote-unquote good is such a ridiculous term. Most people consider art to be good if it looks photorealistic, which that's not the judge of good art. Generally, good art means that wealthy people anointed art as being good and they paid for it. So to make their investments seem worthwhile, they call it good, and thus making it good, making the thing worth whatever they say it is. So this is a famous piece of artwork by an artist. Anybody can do art. Anybody can do it. From an artist. I'm an artist. I know. Ted, very talented little boy that made that. Ted gives her her biscuit. She sets it down right next to the newspaper. We see one of the articles in the newspaper is how the Akufu League falls apart. Rebecca shares that she's no longer cares if they beat Rupert. She still wants to win, but she wants to win for them, for us, for all of us, right? It's not about beating Rupert, right? Which was kind of her only goal. And Ted does too. And I don't know why this is clearly a callback. There must have been other times where she spit tea in his face. But when he says that he wants to win also, she spits tea in his face. But like on purpose, it's like clearly a callback to something which I don't remember. But she says it's a matter of ceremony. So there has to have been other times in the show where she spit tea in his face. And he doesn't care as long as that tree piss doesn't get in his mouth, which is hilarious. So in this great episode where billionaire loses, which is always a great storyline, Roy and Jamie realize they're best friends. Roy realizes that he fucked up with Keeley and sets things straight. Hopefully they are back together now. Roy also changes up his style, wearing the tie-dye. We get more of Nate's past, a little bit of Nate's past, confronting his dad with all the pressures that he grew up with. Also getting Nate apologizing to Will is a great start to get him getting back into Richmond. Rebecca realizing that the immense power that she has and abilities that she has, and the ability to move past trying to just beat Rupert. And even the way she looks in the scene where she talks to Ted, saying she looks more like the Rebecca who was in Amsterdam hanging out with that no-name guy, where she looked completely relaxed and comfortable, as opposed to her tied back hair, like strict conservative businesswoman look. She looks far more at ease. So I like to see that as well. Keeley lost her business, but then Rebecca decides to fund it instead. So a short-lived failure for Keely. In many ways, starts off as a bummer episode for Keely, and not only does she get back with Roy, which I think is more of a plus for Roy than for Keely, although I love them together, but also her business is back with somebody funding it who's her best friend. Barbara stays as Keely's CFO. My predictions for this season, only a few episodes left. Nate still on track to end up back at Richmond. Sam and Rebecca had a moment, so the thought of them getting back together still may happen. Roy and Keely seem like they're back together, so check on that prediction. Keely, don't think she's going to end up at Richmond as her business is going to continue, but the idea of her running Richmond was kind of a far-fetched prediction anyway. Something that I just thought may happen. But another great episode in general. I love when Phoebe is in any episode. The dynamic with her and Roy is always great. Only 2 more episodes left in the series. The team is on track to win it all, especially if Nate comes back. Many of my predictions are on track to make the Henry Lego prophecy a reality. Next episode, episode 11, season 3, episode 11, Mom City. The unanticipated guest has Ted on edge. An unanticipated guest has Ted on edge. Maybe it's Ted's mom. Maybe, since it's called Mom City. When Richmond travel to Manchester for a big match, Roy and Keely become concerned about Jamie. Uh-oh. That's a wrap on another incredible episode of the Ted Lasso Recap Podcast. Y'all have been tuning in, and I couldn't be more grateful. If you're loving what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. I want to make sure I'm hitting the bullseye every time I step up to the mic. Now, I know y'all all have opinions, and I want to hear them. Reach out on social media at Ray Taylor Show on IG, TikTok, or Twitter, and let me know what you're thinking. I promise to read every message with the same enthusiasm as Ted reaching or coaching his team to victory. And finally, I can't wait to get back with y'all next week for another deep dive into the world of Ted Lasso. So until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay gold, folks.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.